The Mavericks are desperately searching for a win tonight as they take on the Toronto Raptors. We'll get you ready for the matchup coming up next on the DLLS Mavs pregame show. Welcome to the DLLS Mavs pregame show powered by Michelob Ultra. Cheer on your team with Michelob Ultra at 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's a superior smooth taste worth playing for. Michelob Ultra, official beer sponsor of the NBA. Kevin Gray here as it's the DLLS Mavs pregame show alongside our DLLS Mavs beat writer Ron Harrod Jr. Mavericks, Raptors tonight at the American Airlines. So we're going to get you ready over the course of the next half hour here as the Mavericks desperately look for their first win of the season. Appreciate you all joining us here on DLLS Sports. Our guy Bobby Curla has the night off tonight. We'll have a special surprise for you during our post-game show after tonight's game is over with. But Ron, what's up? How we feeling?
Good. The vibes feel pretty good still in the AAC, so hopefully the Mavs can pull out a win.
Need to pull out a win because they are 0-2 to start off what is their season-long 5-game homestand at the American Airlines Center. Tip-off tonight at 6:30 p.m. at the AAC. If you're going to be watching the game on television, you can watch it on KFAA Channel 29 or on NBA TV with the Mavericks, of course, 0-2 to start off the season, 0-2 at the AAC. Meanwhile, Toronto Raptors come in at 1-1 on the season, 1-0 away from Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. Raptors coming into tonight a 1.5-point favorite, so essentially a toss-up tonight at the AAC with the over-under at 231.5. So looking for a potential high-scoring affair between these two teams. As we get you ready for tonight's game, of course, we'll have our Mavericks player spotlight, let you know who's in, who's out, what Jason Kidd had to say from his pregame media availability with our guy Ron Harrod Jr. and much more. But Ron, as we get into it, Mavericks, of course, 0-2. They lost on Friday night to the Washington Wizards by 10 points, 117 to 107. They're looking to avoid their first 0-3 start. Check this out. Since 2017, desperate times calling for desperate measures tonight for a Mavericks squad that's in essentially in a must-win situation tonight.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at Cooper Flagg tonight. I asked Jason Kidd kind of pregame, like, how do we kind of plan to like protect him and just the rest of the team from turnovers tonight? Like the Raptors are one of the like longest teams in the league. They have a lot of length, a lot of 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" guys. This is a team filled with wings. So I really, it's going to be hard to almost not turn the ball over because there's going to be in the passing lane. Scottie Barnes is one of the best defenders in the NBA. I saw Brandon Ingram walk into the arena tonight. He looks even taller in person. This team has a lot of length, so I think they're going to have to not turn the ball over, which they've struggled to do early in the season.
Of course, the Mavericks are looking to avoid their first 0-3 start, as I mentioned, since 2017. They're on the first night of their first back-to-back of the season. They'll play Toronto tonight before they welcome in the reigning NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder tomorrow night before they finish up their 5-game homestand on Wednesday with Rick Carlisle and the Indiana Pacers. Meanwhile, Toronto 1-1 on the season. They're coming off a loss on Friday night to Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks, where Giannis dropped 31-20 on Toronto and what was a 122-116 loss. They are 1-0 on the road this season after getting a win against the Hawks, which was 138-118 in their season opener back on Wednesday. Toronto also on the first night of their first back-to-back of the season. They'll take on Dallas tonight. Then they'll be on the road tomorrow against San Antonio to take on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs. Real quick, Victor went for 31 and 6 blocks today, becoming the first player in NBA history to have at least 100 points and 18 blocks in the first 3 games of a season. Victor Wembanyama is on something special right now for San Antonio. Toronto will get a dose of that tomorrow night in San Antonio. But as the Mavericks look to figure things out, the lead story tonight, Ron, This Mavericks offense continues to be literally the worst in the NBA. Coming into tonight's action, dead last in offensive rating at 95.2, which is 7.3 points worse than the Orlando Magic, who sit there in 29th. They've got the worst net rating at a minus 20.6, last in effective field goal percentage at 45.9%, and a true shooting percentage of 51.2%. That's right, you guessed it, boys and girls. The worst in the NBA to start off the season. Averages 99.5 points per game this season, which is also dead last in the association. What did Jason Kidd have to say about the offense going into tonight's game?
Yeah, Coach Kidd seemed not that worried about the offense. I mean, he thought that the offense was progressing. Now, Jay Triano is a new assistant coach on the Dallas Mavericks. This is his first season with the team. He's implementing this DHO style, Princeton style offense. So the Mavericks offense is very different this season, even though there are, of course, some returning players. So he thought that they're learning the system well and that they are progressing. I did see a lot of Mavs fans kind of upset, for my tweet about kind of that video. So I just wanted to make sure we kind of have context now. Mavs fans, you can still be upset. The offense should be better. Regardless of everything, all that context, they should not be the worst in the NBA. So at the end of the day, they have to do something. They're 29th in turnover percentage at 17.8. Like they're turning the ball over a lot while not being able to score a lot, while only being the 20th defense. Something has to change tonight. And I think while Toronto does provide some problems with length, I think the Mavericks can overcome that if they play their game.
And they'll have to play that game against a talented Toronto Raptors team that is balanced with our guy Bobby Karalla out tonight. I'm going to do my best with our Karalla Strader scouting report tonight, and I'm sure he would agree in a lot of respects with this particular point because the Raptors have a balanced attack going into tonight. In fact, they've got an offense that's averaging so far in the first couple of games of the year, averaging over 127 points per game to start off the year, with 6 guys averaging at least 10 points per game through their first couple of games of the season. A team led by R.J. Barrett and also guys like Scottie Barnes and others, and Brandon Ingram and R.J. Barrett each averaging 22.5 points per game so far in their first few games. Meanwhile, Emmanuel quickly leading the team with 8 assists per contest. And oh, by the way, he's giving you 16 points per contest as well through the first couple of games for Toronto. A balanced group that can score in a lot of ways. The Mavericks have had trouble scoring points and so far defending against teams as well, with in terms of San Antonio and Washington so far this year.
Yeah, and Toronto can get to the rim. Like, this is a team that has multiple players that press going towards the rim because they're only 25th in three-point percentage, and they're actually the worst team in the NBA in 3 points made. They've only made 17 threes. So they're going to score a lot of points because they're efficient. They're second in field goal percentage in the whole NBA. I mean, R.J. Barrett is 75% from the field this year with 22 points a game. Again, 2 games. Eventually that will correct. If you're a Mavs fan, you hope that kind of average to the mean happens tonight. R.J. Barrett's been hot throughout the season. Eventually, he has to have a game where he's not 75% from the floor, Kevin. So maybe that game will be tonight against the Mavericks, but they have multiple guys they can go to. They have Scottie Barnes. They have R.J. Barrett. They have Brandon Ingram. They have Isaiah Quickly, and they have Grady Dick, who's kind of their floor spacer. So I think, especially if Dick is one of the starters, that's probably where Klay Thompson goes. If he's not, Klay Thompson's probably going to start on R.J. Barrett, I would think, Kevin. What do you think?
I mean, there's a lot of options to choose from, but R.J. Barrett can go get his own shot, can score from a number of areas on the floor. The question will be, how does the Mavericks find a way to stop what is a balanced attack, given the big lineup that they've been presenting with Cooper Flagg, of course, playing at the point guard position. This Mavericks team, of course, being led by Anthony Davis, who so far through a couple of games averaging 24.5 points per game, 13 rebounds. The last time Anthony Davis saw the Toronto Raptors was, of course, last season in a Mavericks uniform where he had a triple-double with 23 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists. And, oh, by the way, Victor Wembanyama had 7 blocks in that particular game, as he was just a few blocks shy of a quadruple-double in what was a dominant win for the Mavericks in their second-to-last game of the season. He's going to have some help tonight, of course, from the rookie, Cooper Flagg, who last game against Washington had 11 of his 18 points in the fourth quarter, trying to help the Mavericks come back and win that game. Unfortunately, the comeback fell short So far through 2 games, averaging 14 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, and 3 assists per contest. Jason Kidd on Cooper Flagg's fourth quarter performance and what he saw from him as he looks to continue to get better. Here's what Jason Kidd had to say yesterday in media availability.
I would start with the defense, being able to get stops and playing in transition. I thought, again, his ability to get downhill, attacking the paint, and then being able to run the pick and roll and see how the defense is playing him, to be able to knock down some big threes. I thought he was great. Just understand they're picking him up. They're trying to wear him down. To see his strength there in the fourth quarter is a positive.
And Ron, that's what it felt like in that fourth quarter. It was able to get aggressive. I felt like as I was watching it, he started to play and not think. He just started playing within himself and just started making plays and not having to worry about what he had to do to try to make things, better for his teammates. He just started aggressively attacking and going after it himself and played a pretty good fourth quarter. Obviously, the turnovers continue to be an issue, but from an offensive aggressive standpoint, Cooper Flagg found a little something in that fourth quarter against Washington there.
I mean, Cooper Flagg is a special talent. Mavs fans, you should not worry about if Cooper Flagg is going to be a good player. I think he showed a lot of high IQ play. He made a couple of really good passes. There was a pass where he was going around the screen and kind of dashed it to the corner. One of his best plays of the night. It just kind of showed he's kind of seeing the floor. Is he a floor general at this point in his career? No, but learning these skills early, even though it might be ugly, actually can help him on the back end. In the fourth quarter, we saw he went into attack mode. He used that big 6'9" frame to get into defenders. And tonight against another tall group, he's going to have to do that again. I think this is going to be a game, though, where he can really show his defensive impact. The Mavs are 25th in half-court defense with a 105 defensive rating, but they actually are 8th in transition defense. The Raptors team scores a lot in transition. That's how they score a lot of points. With Flagg being able to have just those chase down blocks and plays like that, I think this might be a game where we can see some highlight plays on defense from Cooper Flagg.
And Jason Kidd saying yesterday as well that they've got to be better in their transition defense. That's something that's going to be put to the test tonight, tomorrow against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and on Wednesday against the Indiana Pacers. These teams like to get out and run. The Mavericks transition defensive-wise have got to be much better. The Raptors come into tonight featuring a lot of talent, including Scottie Barnes, who's actually this year averaging almost 20 points per game in his first couple of games while shooting nearly 52% from the field. Raptors have been shooting the ball extremely well in their first 2 games. In fact, second in the association, shooting over 53% from the field so far in their first couple of games. We know how the Mavericks have struggled, unfortunately, on the defensive end. They will look to not only improve upon that tonight, but also do so in style as they're wearing their green Hardwood Classic uniforms tonight, and with the Hardwood Classic floor inside of the American Airlines Center. Hopefully, Ron, that'll change a little bit of the juju inside of the AAC with the classic greens coming back tonight for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, and the court looks beautiful. They have like the retro on the scoreboard up there. That looks really cool. It's like a throwback NBA Jam kind of feel.
Jam.
Maybe that gives the team some juice. So, and I accidentally wore green. Didn't even really think about it.
Oh, look at you!
So I guess since Bobby's out, I guess I'm taking the corporate role today. Sorry, Bobby. So,
shout out to
I've
corporate
been getting
Bobby.
made fun of at the AAC the whole day by the other writers, because I definitely did not mean to wear this shirt, knowing that. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good energy. The court looks great. The jerseys look great. Maybe this is just, sometimes you just need to do something different. And it can be something as small as change a jersey to like kind of break the juju or just change the energy. I saw that the Baltimore Ravens took the pinball machine out the room last week and they won the game today without Lamar Jackson. So sometimes it's those little changes a sports team can make that can change kind of the atmosphere, the vibe, and just how players go into it. So Anthony Davis is another player that I'll be looking at as well, just to see, okay, 2 games, good play. Can he turn it up a notch?
We'll let you know who's in, who's out coming up here in just a moment. The Mavericks and Raptors, of course, meet each other for the first time this season, the first of 2 regular season matchups. Last year, the Mavericks won the season series 2-0. The Mavericks scoring at least 124 points in each of their 2 wins against Toronto. These 2 teams won't see each other again until early March, on March 8th, when they face each other in Toronto. Coming up here in just a moment, we'll let you know who's in, who's out. We'll focus in on our Mavericks player spotlight as well as we get you ready for the Mavericks taking on the Raptors in game number 3 season for your Mavericks. But before we get there, I want to help you win some money when it comes to Prize Picks. Of course, this episode brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. It's very simple. Pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in. They've even got the flex play, Bobby Corella, where you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You could double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. In fact, Prize Picks is the best way to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users by signing up today. Download the app today and use code DLLS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code DLLS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup with Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us here on the DLLS Mavs pregame show. Kevin Grant Long here with our DLLS Mavs beat writer Ron Harrod Jr. as the Mavericks will take on the Raptors with tip-off at 6:30 p.m. tonight at the American Airlines Center. Our post-game show will be about 15 minutes after the final buzzer, where our special guest sitting in for our guy, Bobby Corella, National Timler, Tim Cato, is going to be with us throughout the entirety of our post-game show tonight, live in studio, so you don't want to miss that. When we have our post-game show about 15 minutes after the final buzzer tonight. Apparently, Dak must have done something crazy because Devontae Moses 3494 is screaming Dak in the chat. So I don't know what's going on, but it sounds like it better be something good. So let me know, chat, what's going on, because as you know, as a Cowboys fan sitting here doing this show, my attention is like all the way somewhere else. But at the same time, we'll see what happens with the Cowboys and the Broncos. But let's get to the injury report for tonight going into tonight's game. For the Toronto Raptors, Colin Murray-Boyles is available. He's dealing with a forearm strain for the Toronto Raptors. For the Dallas Mavericks, Daniel Gafford going to be out once again. 3rd straight game to start the season missed for him with the right ankle sprain that he will not be available for. Unfortunately, Brandon Williams is also out for tonight as well for personal reasons, so he will not be available for tonight's game. Kyrie Irving continues to remain out. Dante Exum continues to remain out as well, and apparently it was bad. Dak threw a pick, so not great. So there we go. Thanks a lot, chat. Thank you for letting me know, keeping me abreast on what's happening. Apparently it wasn't great, though, because Dak threw
thank you, chat.
Interception. So that's a wrap on that game, by the way. It's a wrap on that. But unfortunately, no Daniel Gafford, but also Brandon Williams out for personal reasons. Did Jason Kidd have any more to say or elaborate on why Brandon Williams is away from the team tonight?
No, he didn't really get into why Brandon was out. I would assume some probably family, I would assume. So it's probably, which is usually when people use personal reasons, is usually something around kind of those issues. But with him out, Ron Harrod, I would assume he gets more minutes. Jason Kidd didn't guarantee that. But you're down a guard. So so I think we can, as me and Kevin, we can guarantee Ron Harrod will at least probably get around 15 minutes tonight, I would assume. Again, this is a very big team, so maybe they just try to fight big with big, and some of the guard minutes get reduced. But overall, with one guard out, Ron Harrod's probably up next. And Daniel Gafford, it seems like he's progressing. Kid kind of talked about that a little bit. Me and Kevin also saw him at practice yesterday. He was on the bike. He was working out. I didn't see him at all pregame, but it looks like he's progressing. My only thing is I think he was listed as questionable for game 1, and now it's game 3. So was he really ever questionable for game 1 is kind of just the take I have. I never understand how those kind of things work, because if you were questionable, a week ago, essentially, then was there something else that happened that we're unaware of, or we just kind of don't know? So sorry we can't really provide a real strong update on Daniel Gafford.
Yeah, because Kid said yesterday that Daniel Gafford was questionable. Then a couple hours later, when the injury report came out, he was listed as doubtful. And then we wake up today, he's officially ruled out with the ankle sprain. So missing the first 3 games, we will see what his availability would look like as the week goes on. Because I can't imagine with the Mavericks being on the first night of a back-to-back that he'll be available for tomorrow before they play the Pacers on Wednesday. So more when it comes to Daniel Gafford as the week goes on. That gets us to our Mavericks player spotlight on this Sunday evening, and we turn our attention to PJ Washington Jr. out of Kentucky, of course. PJ Washington off to a strong start this year, averaging 17.5 points per game, 7 rebounds per contest, while shooting 60% from the field and 50% from downtown. Of course, that does 18 points and 9 rebounds, playing nearly 40 minutes in the game on Friday against the Washington Wizards. And so far, Ron, he's been the most consistent Maverick through the first couple of games, bringing it on both ends of the floor, but offensively providing some real punch where there really hasn't been much of that for the Mavericks so far in the first couple of games this year.
Yeah, I mean, Najee Marshall yesterday at practice sung PJ Washington praise. He said PJ Washington is playing like PJ Washington, how we all thought that he would play. So it seems like his teammates are behind his fast start, and he's been one of the team's strongest defenders, as well as one of the team's kind of offensive spark plugs. Some of these games, to be honest, would have probably been even more ugly without these PJ Washington kind of hot spells. Usually when the Mavs down, if another team's on an 8-0 run, it just seems like PJ Washington comes out of nowhere with a 3-point make, a putback, a kind of layup. He always has been kind of there for the team when they're kind of started trailing or kind of going off. So I'm interested to see, can he keep it up again and have another strong game? Because he'll probably draw a tough matchup. If I would assume, he probably draws Brandon Ingram to start this game. So, I mean, I know Najee Marshall says that he got Brandon Ingram, Kevin, but I don't think Najee Marshall started tonight. So I think PJ Washington is going to get the first crack at Brandon Ingram.
In fact, here's what Najee Marshall had to say about PJ Washington and his fast start for the Mavericks so far through the first couple of games. Here's what he had to say.
PJ, bro. I'm not surprised. He holding it down for real. Him and AD is holding it down for us right now. And I know he's going to keep it up. You know what I'm saying? God willing, everybody stay healthy. We're going to need PJ, bro. For sure. When we win a championship, he's gonna be a part of the reason, a lot of the reason. So just hope he can stay healthy, and I know he's gonna continue to maintain what he's doing as long as he's out there on the floor.
And he's going to be in that starting lineup tonight, as we do have your starters going into tonight's game, which we'll touch on here in a few moments as well. But your starters for tonight: Cooper Flagg, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively II. So the starting lineup that we've seen in the first couple of games, that will continue tonight with Cooper Flagg at your point guard position, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively II making up your starting five, which honestly, Ron, that has been a conversation among Mavericks fans that they are a little bit tired of already, with the point flag experiment continuing. Jason Kidd discussing that yesterday, which will get us to our X-Factors going into tonight's game. We'll start with number one. The Mavericks got to cut it out with the turnovers. It was an issue, especially on Friday's game. They had 21 turnovers in that loss. In fact, they've got the 5th worst turnover percentage so far for the first couple of games of the season, turning the ball over at nearly an 18% clip so far this season. The turnover is inexcusable, but as you'll hear from Jason Kidd here in just a second, the Mavericks are going to continue to stick with that lineup that we just named. In fact, here's what Kidd had to say about the turnover problem and the fact that the Mavericks are going to stick with that starting five that you just heard. Take a listen.
Yeah, when we look at those turnovers, a lot of them were, they weren't forced. We just made silly passes. People weren't looking, or we just were a little lazy with the ball. So we have to be better. We have to protect the ball. Getting stops, especially being down, you have to play, perfect, and making free throws, taking care of the ball, and getting stops. And for us, we're getting the stops, and then we're turning the ball over. That's something that we've talked about, and we got to get better at. Until we get healthy, this is the group, and it's not just Cooper. PJ had some, and AD had some. So we have to be better.
Until we get healthy, Ron, this is the group. Jason Kidd doubling down, saying, "Hey man, that starting five that you hear and you see, that's the group." Until Kyrie Irving, I'm assuming, is who he is talking about, obviously, in terms of getting healthy, comes back. So we might as well settle into the point flag experience, because it's not going anywhere for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like D'Angelo Russell is close to cracking the starting lineup. I've got no indication from D'Lo that, or from Jason Kidd. I saw D'Lo warming up. He looked okay. I mean, he made practicing his floaters, shooting some jumpers. he was kind of getting, into his pregame routine, but it doesn't seem like he's either done enough at practice or in some of his game spots to prove that he deserves to be the starting point guard for Jason Kidd. So I'm actually interested to see when he does get in, can he maximize his time to kind of add more and more minutes? Because he's really the player, I think, that can push for a starting spot, but he truthfully hasn't had an amazing game to get in that lineup. He's not known to be a defensive player, but he's been pretty bad on defense. And then offensively, he hasn't been able to score the ball at a high clip. So I think he needs to have a big game to kind of force his way into the starting lineup.
So with that being said, let's settle into the Cooper Flagg point guard experience, because it's going to be around for quite some time, and Cooper Flagg will continue to have the ball in his hands and get better at playing at that position, even though the Mavericks have acknowledged that they're playing him out of position at this particular point. But right now they feel like he is the best option given the point guards, or lack thereof, they feel like they have on this roster right now, which gets us to X Factor number 2 going into tonight's game. Klay Thompson has got to get it going, and Klay Thompson so far in the first 2 games, 6 of 20 from the field overall, just 2 of 11 from downtown. Ron, this is something that I know that you have focused on when it comes to Klay Thompson getting off to poor starts, and how do the Mavericks find a way to get him better quality shots, according to Jason Kidd?
Yeah, Coach Kidd talked about just the screens and screening to get Klay back in order, but it just seems like they have not been able to unlock him and get him back on the court with the rest of the team. He's been taking a lot of mid-range shots. It's been pretty tough for Klay Thompson. He hasn't had many wide open threes. So Cooper Flagg, I think it was in a fast break, ran past the player, kind of threw it back to Klay, and he made a 3-point shot. That was a wide open attempt, and Klay Thompson made the shot. If you get Klay Thompson open catch and shoot threes, he'll knock them down. Now, is he the mover that he was early in Golden State around screens? No, he's not. But at the end of the day, for him to get open, he's not going to be able to create kind of on his own on the dribble. So they're going to have to screen to get him open. And the Mavs just have not been a strong screening team. He probably misses Daniel Gafford just as much as anyone with those just hard screens to go around. So hopefully Klay Thompson can get off tonight, but I'm going to assume they're going to put probably, some younger legs on him tonight to probably stifle him again.
And the Mavericks will need some of that floor spacing from Klay Thompson in order to help out the offensive woes that we've seen so far in the first couple of games this year. Speaking of offensive woes, that gets us to our last X factor of tonight's game between the Mavericks and the Raptors. The Mavericks bench has to find a way to come to life, because so far through 2 games, they are a minus 28 in terms of the bench unit, being outscored 85-57 in the first couple of games, including that second quarter where the game flipped against Washington, where the Mavericks bench was outscored 21-0 in that second period, and the Wizards turned that game around and really never looked back from there. They have got to get, speaking of Najee Marshall, they've got to get something from Najee Marshall and others to try to help out the starting unit. Otherwise, it could be another long night for this team, given the fact that they have simply not gotten enough from their bench unit so far.
Yeah, Najee Marshall is a player that the Mavs are really counting on to be able to score points off the bench. He can create his own shot. He can get to the lane. If he can, get back to maybe his 2023 self, he can make a bunch of 3-point shots as well. They kind of need the knife to be one of their strongest bench players, especially with P.J. Washington being a starter and not the 6th man. They're going to need some strong bench minutes from players like Najee Marshall. And we even saw Jaden Hardy. The Mavs went to Jaden Hardy late last game because they needed something off the bench. And one thing about Jaden Hardy, he's not scared to shoot the basketball.
No.
So when he got in there, he got his shots up. Last game he was hot. We'll see if that continues, if they'll go to Jaden Hardy again. But Najee Marshall is supposed to be his role. He's supposed to kind of be that microwave off the bench. So let's hope that he can kind of get it going tonight.
Well, the Mavericks have a chance to get a win. They are desperate for a win tonight. They'll look good in doing so tonight. Hopefully, if they W at the American Airlines Center with the Hardwood Classics in the green uniforms tonight. Of course, our post-game show will be about 15 minutes after the final buzzer tonight. Again, tip-off at 6:30 p.m. at the American Airlines Center as the Mavericks at 0-2 to start the season. 0-2 at the AAC. Look for their first win of the season on the first night of a back-to-back as they get ready to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder tomorrow night. Meanwhile, Toronto looking to get a win on their first night of a back-to-back. They'll take on the San Antonio Spurs tomorrow night. We appreciate all of you hanging out with us here on the DLLS Mavs pregame show. Shout out to our guy Tanner making us look good and sound good as always. Thank you, sir. That is our DLLS Mavs beat writer Ron Harrod Jr. He will be at the AAC reporting live after the game as well, along with our national NBA insider Mark Stein and our guy Tim Cato going to be joining me here live in studio for the entirety of our post-game show as well, so you don't want to miss that. Ron, appreciate the time, my man. We'll talk to you post-game.
You too.
There he goes. That's our DLLS Mavs beat writer Ron Harrod Jr. That'll do it for us here on our pregame show. My name is Kevin Gray. We are DLLS Mavs. We'll talk to you after the game tonight. The Mavericks take on the Raptors at the AAC. Y'all be good. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.